Hey everyone, it's Justine and welcome to another episode of Jumpstart Your Creativity with Justine. So today I'm going to be creating this really fun interactive card that I wanted to show you that spins and moves around to reveal various images. So I want to get started by using the Peek-a-Boo Wheel die from My Favorite Things. I'm going to cut this out of a piece of white cardstock and I am going to run this through my die cutting machine. So I'm using a Gemini Junior die cutting machine off to the side here. Next up, I grabbed a piece that measures 4 by 5 1/4, and I am going to be cutting this die here to have the slot that will reveal the wheel. Now you can see I already have die cut in the center of that spiral, a pinpoint for a brad to go through. Now this came with the die cut by itself, and I'm going to now go ahead and I'm going to mark approximately the area where my wheel is going to be on my card using a pencil, and this is going to help me just line everything up. After I created this video, I checked out My Favorite Things channel to see if anyone else had done a video on this, and the video that was created a few days ago also offers very awesome tips and tricks on how to use this die. So be sure to check that out too. So now I know where my circle is going to be, where the rotating wheel is going to be. So I'm able to put a window here die cut onto my cardstock, and I'm going to go run that through my die cutting machine now as well. Now I'm going to keep that negative piece of that circle off to the side here because it's going to come in handy later. So you'll see how they all line up, and I'm going to take a look at how these line up in particular in order to create a dot that goes through the card panel as well. So I'm just putting my pick here through both pieces of the cardstock where that circle is going to be. I lined it up on the side with that circle so that I was happy, and now it's ready to go. Now don't laugh at me here. I don't own any brads. Can you believe it? I'm really not a person that hoards craft supplies. I purge them if I'm not using them. So I didn't have any brads, but I went and looked in some old kits and I found this spider brad that will have to do the trick. So I took off the 3D part of the spider brad so that I could use it for my card. However, it still had legs. I guess I could have cut them off, but my die cut's going to hide it anyway, so it's not a big deal. It's just going to be this funny little spider that's hiding behind a die. So those are how it's going to work. You can see it goes in absolutely no problem, and as long as you have it a little bit loose in the brad, you should be good to go. I am going to take it apart though at various points throughout the card making process in order to make sure that I can get a nice flat surface to work on. So I'm adding some purple tape to my card panel. I'm going to make my front scene here, and I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide ink in order to create my scene. Now I'm going in with some Salty Ocean ink because what better to do watercolor with than a salty ocean color, and I'm going to go in along the sides as well with some chipped sapphire. I'm doing nothing new or strategic with my ink blending here. I'm just adding paint or ink to my surface until I'm happy with how saturated it is. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove that purple tape, and it's going to be like a flat ocean surface, even though oceans aren't really this flat, but hey, whatever. And I'm going to, you can see that I added a little bit of water to that as well so that it had that distressed look. So I'm going to get some of my elements for my card panel here stamped. I am using 2 stamp sets, Snow Special and Berry Best Friends from the new release, and I'm inking those up with some MFT Extreme ink so that I can coat it color. Now I am mixing and matching the 2 sets because they work just really well together, and I thought it would be kind of fun to combine more than one stamp set. So I'm just doing a double stamp here and I'm ready to go. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to reattach my 2 pieces. Now there are several ways to add images, and I learned a couple of things along the way as well. So you can go ahead if you feel confident. You can use a block to add images. You can go ahead and add your MISTI there to the mix to add some images. But what I did notice when I was doing it is a really good idea to just not stamp them close together on your circle or on your rotating wheel. Now the reason why is because if they're too close together, you're going to start seeing 2 images in the window, and to me that wasn't a big deal at all. I kind of like the way it looks, so it's not a problem. But when you're doing the rotating wheel, if you're using really large stamps, you're going to see them on the rotating wheel, and whether or not that bothers you is completely up to you. So just some tips and tricks to keep that in mind, and the other video using this die set will give you lots of helpful tips on how to avoid that by creating a little template. So I'm just adding mix and matching stamps that fit inside this little window. Now, of course, I ended up running out of stamps that fit this window, which is one of the reasons why I had looked to add different images. So as I went along, I just slid it until it was out of view, and then I went ahead and stamped a new stamp. Again, nothing wrong with that at all, but you will see some of them in that rotating piece. But again, not that big of a deal. So I was thinking of the penguins that I'm going to add here later and polar bears, and so I thought, hey, why not a little igloo? Why not a little sleeping bear? Some little fish that they can eat? All sorts of things like that. Now, what can you do if your images are too big to fit in the circle to stamp? So you can take your card apart, add the rotating wheel to your MISTI, and you can go ahead and, well, you can trace, first of all, where the window would be. That's what I did with a pencil. And then you can go ahead and stamp these down. And once again, I just was able to add some bigger pieces. I tried to not stamp the entire image either because I thought it was only important to stamp in the windowed area, which is true. So I went ahead and I checked out my spinner. I put my card back together to see what it would look like with all these areas. I didn't erase any of the lines yet, so don't mind the lines for the window. I just wanted to see. So there's the penguin, the polar bear, the sleeping polar bear, the fish. I have this igloo that went upside down. But hey, that is something to keep in mind too when you do your wheel, is that things have to be right side up. So if you take your card apart to stamp on it, just make sure it's going to look okay when you go ahead and rotate. I am the type of person that likes to keep my mistakes in videos, so I hope you don't mind, but I feel that's the way you'll learn and not make the same as me. So I'm using this Hills and Drifts stencil from My Favorite Things with some tumbled glass to add some little snowbanks in the sky. And you can see that I used that negative piece of that circle die cut out the window to just protect my area of all of the stamped images on the wheel. And I used a little bit of washi tape to keep that in place. I'm now going to place my penguin so that it's covering that hideous spider that's on my Christmas card. And I am adding the penguins to sheets of ice, and I kind of have them off. I don't have them lined up side by side. I thought one could be a little bit closer, one a little bit farther in the background to add a little bit of depth to my image. Now I'm going to remove that window there, and you can see I have my little polar bear there as well. And I'm just using some liquid glue here to just add everything else. So I added some little clouds here. These are die cuts from My Favorite Things as well. I just want to have as many things in my scene as possible to make it look pretty realistic. And I even covered that window up a little bit using my cloud because I thought that would look a little bit neat. I am now going to go ahead and flip my card over, and I'm going to use some 3D foam tape here to adhere it to my background. If I were to glue the wheel directly onto my background, obviously it wouldn't really move around. So it's important to prop it up using some dimension and add that to a card base. So just adding that here, and you can see I have a nice little white border around it. Now later towards the end of the video, I am going to show you that I did add a little bit of patterned paper behind the wheel just to make sure that it didn't get lost in that really white background. Now I went ahead and colored all of my penguins there. I hope you don't mind. I made them sort of a little theme. I am very inspired by colors of Harry Potter and their adorable little scarves, so I decided to color them kind of like little Potter penguins, and I thought that would be really cute. So I added those with some red and gold colored Copic markers, and I didn't do any shading whatsoever. I just added one layer because I figured this card is pretty detailed already. We don't need to get crazy over here. I then added a sentiment from the stamp set with the Penguin Snow Special, and I went ahead and then just added that piece of patterned paper behind the wheel so that it was easy to see, and added also a little pop of color. So I hope you enjoyed this card tutorial, and I hope you'll give this wheel a try. It's a super easy interactive card, surprisingly. As long as you get that window down, the actual putting it together part is super simple, which is rare in an interactive card in my opinion. So I hope you enjoyed this video today. You're welcome to subscribe to the My Favorite Things channel. And if you'd like to check out more videos, there are suggestions below. Thanks so much. Bye.